You might have seen yesterday the latest IPSOS Issues Monitor poll was released. This is my favourite poll for a number of reasons. For a start, it doesn't create a horse race narrative between voter preferences. It asks about the issues facing voters first, and then asks who they feel is best suited to tackle those issues. So it's got a lot more information that helps us see a bigger picture. Secondly, from a media analysis perspective, it's a brilliant tool to showcase how media sets an agenda that the public follows through as a concern that ends up here in the poll. And thirdly, it's a completely bipartisan poll. It's not paid for by a right-wing AstroTurf lobby group to make the right look good. It's not run by a media outlet to boost their ratings. It's entirely self-funded and initiated by IPSOS themselves because they can use it as a sales tool to show other clients how well they work. So, the way it works is this. IPSOS asks about 1,000 people to identify issues important to them and then asks which party they feel is best suited to deal with those issues. Across the board, it was agreed ACT sucks and is no good on any issue, and I can't say I disagree with that. But the biggest issues impacting us is still the cost of living, it's still healthcare, and it's still medical access in the economy. But the biggest jump has actually been in the cost of fuel, which is now in the top 4 issues that we see as, issues. And some of these feed off each other, okay? The fuel cost concern might be answered as a concern about the cost of living, for example, but it's undeniable that for most respondents, the issues are around how much more expensive it is to live here at the moment. The data they provide breaks this down by age as well and shows us that voters between 18 and 34 saw the cost of fuel as a higher issue than older generations, and that voters over 65 saw healthcare access as the biggest issue, which makes sense because this is the age group which proportionally has the need of this more than any others. Of the top 20 issues, Labour is seen as the best to deal with 11 of them, National 4, the Greens 2 and Te Pāti Māori 1, with National and Labour tying on 2 issues. And we can see the impacts that media coverage actually has on these outcomes as well. This is agenda setting that I've mentioned in a number of other videos, all working at once. Okay, the increased cost and coverage of fuel directly coincides with increased media coverage. So that's one thing that we could say is possibly to do with agenda setting, but the details in the immigration issue spotlight show us how that despite the India Free Trade Agreement news coverage and the shitload of racism from New Zealand First that's given them news coverage and guest spots on conspiracy peddling radio stations,
that is my friends in New Zealand First.
They've seen an increase in people considering New Zealand First capable of dealing with immigration. But overall, the number of people who actually see immigration as an issue has decreased. It's like New Zealand First are standing in a leaking swimming pool and they're peeing in the pool to replace the lost water. The pool is more and more pee as they replace water that gets lost, and they're the ones taking up more space in that pee-filled swimming pool because the levels keep dropping. All right, it's not the best analogy, but I think it gets the message across. And as I said, they do it all here as a showcase to show the case for organisations to hire IPSOS or buy more granular data from their findings. Unlike the TPU Curia poll, which is paid for by a lobby group who refuses to release their funders and has a clearly partisan angle in a survey that's undertaken by an unregulated pollster that refuses to be regulated after being caught asking misleading questions to garner answers they wanted, whose content then gets laundered monthly for free to legitimise it by both NZME titles and Radio New Zealand. The IPSOS content doesn't have any of those issues, and unlike the polling that we see for, say, 3 News or 1 News, which are designed to double as content creation leads as well as news stories, the IPSOS poll doesn't have that baggage. It shows us the data that backs up how we tend to feel about issues that we are facing. And as we go into the budget day tomorrow, we're going to be able to see the impact next quarter on the way that the government spends the way it's spending money and the way they want the public to actually feel about how they're really spending the money and what their priorities are. They'll be able to tell if $1 million in political donations from fast-track approval-linked organisations gets them more treats, or if Radio New Zealand and 1 News not playing nice all the time with the 3 coalition leaders will see their veiled threats come to fruition and having those organisations' funding cut even further. The next one of these Issues Monitor polls is also due just as we go into the regulated period for the campaign. So the limit on National actually being able to straight up lie to voters directly, which they do on more than a daily basis right now, is going to be in place. And that might also make a difference in how we see the issues facing us this election. And of course, if you want to have your say in the issues facing us, the best way to do that is to vote. If your details are not up to date by October 25 this year, you will not be able to vote this year, no matter how you feel about the economy, the health system, or the other issues that we're facing every day. Oh, hey there, podcast listeners. Thanks for checking out today's podcast, whether that's on video or audio. I really appreciate it. And I did finally get around to doing a podcast end tag, which I've been meaning to do for a while instead of just taking you onto the Facebook version. So while you're here, why not hit that subscribe button so that you can get updates coming in directly every time there's a new episode uploaded. Just seems like a really simple way to keep up to date with all of the crazy that's going on. So yeah, give that a shot and I'll talk to you soon.